which I asked you to upload to FileLocker, and I'm going through it. So it obviously takes a little bit of time. Also wanted to go through your Azure publications. Some of you didn't send it to me. Some of you indicated there were errors with well, especially with publishing to Azure, which so I'll have to try to discuss it a little more about. Well, let me just go where I sent some email to some of you. The FileLocker submissions that I didn't have, I'll go in alphabetical order. Charles, did you submit yourself? Okay, and you said you had problems with Azure. You explored Amazon Web Services. Okay, maybe we can discuss it, and if there are student options, that's. But you've had some consistent problems with Azure. Then. Okay, Jason. Brian, you said you're talking to Tim about Azure. And Tim, you had problems earlier, but you resolved it then. Well, but you have your database on it. Okay. Maybe since you actually had problems and then fixed it, maybe you can discuss what helped you fix problems. Maybe if somebody else is experiencing the same thing, because I know that Brian said he had problems, and then Ryan as well, right? Okay. There were a few others who told me that they had problems. That was Colton. Colton, have you resolved the Azure or not? Okay, Jeff? Not yet? Okay. Well, I guess I should mention Jack, if he is listening. Everybody is Philadelphia. He needs to communicate with me. Austin, you've had the Azure problems, right? So, Tim, when you come up here and talk about it, maybe you can mention what exactly the problems you had, and maybe you can see that. And all of you have the document that Mike prepared that I emailed you. Okay. If you don't have it, I'll email it again. He basically documented what he did to publish to Azure. So Austin, the next one was, there's Cody, is River even in the course, or is it? Okay.
I'll find out. I'll check it out.
Yeah, otherwise you are left with a group of one yourself. So, yeah.
Has he showed up at all in the last week?
I didn't see him last class. I didn't see him. So I don't know.
Jack listed at the time, so I didn't know if he came in at all. Alright, I'll check this out.
Okay. Andrew, where's Andrew? Okay, you said the publishing to Azure didn't work?
I just looked at some things outside. I just started and I was
Okay, so how many of you followed Mike's instructions and or you did and still you had problems? Okay, Cody, you also had initial problems, but you fixed it, right?
Yeah.
So I think Tim and you should come up here, because I don't know if Mike quite experienced the same problems that, and if you resolve it, maybe you can add to what he has already done. And then who else was? Okay, James, you submitted the file. Okay. Nassar, I've not heard from you. it's even if you're having trouble, if you submit what you have, Adam, you submitted it. Okay, Kevin, I didn't see. Did you? I sent you that. Have you tried publishing to Azure?
I have it.
Okay. Did you, Cody? Did you send the PDF to Kevin as well? Okay. The same to you, Erica, as well. If you even if you don't have all the functionalities, post on the file locker, and at least start with Kevin and you. I think should start with the simplest option. Post it and I'll discuss some of it in class now. And if you're having problems, then you can sort of fix it from the fundamentals. And finally, others, I think. Madeline had some problems with her project. Have you fixed it, or?
I fixed the part that we were emailing
Yeah.
about, and I'm trying to fix the other errors now.
Okay. One of the things I'll actually use Madeline's project for just some little bit of troubleshooting. This is something that one of the things when let's see, I'll open this project up so that I can. One of the things that I struggle with is I keep saying I don't want to provide you answers. Part of it is I want you to. The discussion should be where you actually understand it to be able to resolve the problem if it happens again the next time. And that's why I said, some of you keep sort of tinkering and exploring. That's one of the best ways to learn and understand. So let's see. Let me go through this project, some of the errors that occur and how do you try to troubleshoot it if it were to happen to you. So if I try to build the solution, and I tend to, and my quest there as well when we were having this discussion, and what we were trying to suggest was, if you're having problems, start with small. So for example, here you can see it indicates 28 areas. How many areas do you want to deal with at a time? Yeah, there are some. It's very rarely going to be one because the same area will sort of cascade, so you'll end up with, instead of one, with 2, 3. But if it starts to become more than rule of thumb 5, then I would start to. You say 28 is too many. What does that tell you if you see 28 areas? It's not just something is wrong with you try to do too much. So, and what we were discussing was trying to do one step at a time. So, for example, the first one, where it says, okay, so courses.add range, it's not recognizing the methods. Where is add range? Is that a method we created? No, so it's something that's not coming from the library. So courses, and let me ask Nazar, because I've not seen his project. Where would you go to try to? So right now you can see it's indicating areas. One with this method, that's something that comes from the library. course offering, student course registration. This comes from the library. Where does this come from? Okay, the model, well, there is a course offering model, so which is a singular.
Oh, wait, no, I know that.
How many of you know which place you will go to? I don't want to see Mike's hand up there. Yeah. What's it? Yeah, good. Identity models. That's the place where you're making the connection between the model and the database. Okay, so the first thing you see is so the plural version of all these clauses, you have to have them here to connect to the database. So that's one thing that's missing. And the one clause where you're not having the error, courses, it's not recognizing the method that's there. So which means that, well, these three connecting links are not there, not defined, and the one that has been defined seems to have some problem. What's the problem? How many of you understand the problem here? What's this supposed to do here? It's to connect to the database. So, Jeff, what would you do to connect to the database? Okay. Okay, DB set, and then indicate that this is dealing with the course clause in the model. Okay. And then use the get and set properties. Okay, so if you make this one change, you can see that now the add range method is recognized. And obviously we need the same thing to be done for course offering. So one thing I would have done differently here would have been, I wouldn't even have brought this in, and I would have just checked it with just the course alone. So one at a time, and that. So if I were to build this now, okay, it comes down to 24, and then I guess it's, let's see what's the error was. 22. Okay, so here I'm referring to db.courseofferings. So if I refer to db.courseofferings and it's showing an error, I need to define it here. So what I want you to do first is, if you're having problems on your project, break it down into the simplest, smallest piece, and then build on it. The second is, if it's anything that shows the error as like database related, first see if you've defined the database connection properly. Those are some simple things to do. So I'm assuming that some of you are still having problems. So if you are, please do it that way, step by step, do the migration and see if it works. Okay, so that's the first piece. The second was, maybe I should ask, yeah. Yeah, I did, yeah.
I was able to get it working. I had to roll back my database forward,
Yeah.
but the only problem I'm having is I was able to get the functionality for, like, if you put in a lot of people to the same course,
Yeah.
it doesn't show up. Like I don't know, if I already have like a lot of people starting for the course and the course registration is showing 0, it doesn't show up when I try to add somebody else. I got that working. Now I calculate student GPA, I search for subject right tests, and I search for course offering tests.
Okay, so, well, I'll have to look at that specifically, but the general concept is that after you want to start creating more tests for each of them, and if they're failing, one thing that you have to do, let me open up, and this is something we discussed, let's see, you'll have to have multiple links. So let me open up the project I'm using. When you're testing, and that's something we'll get into what James was mentioning. Not James, Fred, right? It's James. It's okay. The issue is you have to make two connections. One to your main database, the development database that we are using, which is, where is it? Right here, missed whole 5 student registration. The second is your test. Okay, so in your web config, why do we have both the default and the test in the web config? What does the web config? It's what is the application with which we are dealing, or the database that we are dealing with on our MVC application. What's the main database that we use for the MVC application? The development database. So why do we have the test database also indicated here?
Different methods within
it's not for testing. For testing purposes, where do we put it? Well, the testing database goes to the test project, and it's if you look at the app config, there is no web config in a test project. The app config, and you will have it going to the testing database. So the question is, why do we then have this test database set up in the web config of the MVC project? And obviously you need to know this for your project, which we'll get to next class, as well as your midterm, which we'll get to sometime in March. So if you don't know this, you won't be able to do the testing. So why do we have this over here as well as in the app config? If you're only testing, we can go through just the app config. But what's the purpose of having it here? As Fred pointed out, the web application MVC only uses it's for the development purpose, so you could only start with just this alone. This was something that Mike helped us learn, so why do we use this? Yes, this is
So that we can keep our data, like, separate from that, so that it's not always changing and it's not working.
okay.
Because in the web config deals with also like how we do our migration for images.
Yeah.
So I haven't taken
Yeah, what Cecilia pointed out, how many of you understood this? Both the databases need data, right? So how does the migration occur? It occurs through the MVC project. So to migrate it, we need to go through this project, and from what Mike told us, we could use the migration and change the connection string. So using different connection strings, which if I can get to my okay, so if you remember, Mike told us that we can use this, what exactly is the technical term when you use this?
Property.
Is a property?
Property.
Okay. So what he gave, what he had told us or what we could do was we can specify which connection string we are using for updating the database. And by doing this, we can, by setting up multiple connection strings, we can specify where we are, which database gets populated or reversed, and so on. So that's the reason we set up these two connection strings in webconfig, and just the test connection string in appconfig. If you don't know this, of course, you're not going to get the project or the exam. I keep mentioning the exam because that seems to be the big motivator to connect. So if I don't mention it, it doesn't. Okay, it's the what's it called? The Pavlovian response, right? It's like exam connected to. I have to remember stuff. Otherwise, I don't have to. Anyways, so coming back to the last, so to answer Fred, this is one of the issues that you might want to check to make sure that it is getting populated correctly on a test database. Before I move to the discussion, how many of you have this update of your student GPA working now? I'm obviously going to review the project, but many of you didn't have the student GPA working on the project. How many have it working? Okay, and you pushed it on, published it on Azure? Okay, so you can explain that to the entire class now, how to get it working?
No pressure.
If you are, how many still have, Andrew, did Cody show you how to publish to Azure? So it's working now?
Yep.
Okay, what about Kevin? Okay, who else is still having problems? Like, I know that Jeff has worked on it quite a bit, and without success, right? So did you ask, but still it's not, okay. Okay, I'm just wondering if there is a sufficient number who have problems for us to have somebody come up here to discuss. Tim and Cody, do you want to come up here? How many Cody, have you helped somebody else?
I think I helped River and Jack when they touched it.
Okay.
That was months ago.
Okay, so, well then, Cody, you can come up here then too, with Tim. Tim and Cody, come up here and talk about what you have been doing to help the others fix it for Azure. Yeah. We'll get it recorded in case you can. Do you need to log in as yourself, or who do you want to log in as?
How well does yours work? How well does yours work? I can do it.
So you need to log out, right? I don't know, you can.
We're just talking about publishing.
Yeah.
All I did was follow the.
Just follow the.
I just followed the PDF. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just did you follow the PDF steps?
Yeah.
So you'll have to tell them what exactly. The problem is I don't have access to Azure as yet. Bravo gave us some money, some $10,000, but this is why you shouldn't give it to a university. It's nearly 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
In 2018.
So anyways, they are supposed to set up accounts, but they haven't. So.
That's great. Well, you have your database.
So, Mike, did you say that you have your databases connecting through?
No, it's using Nanda's database.
Yeah. So, for whatever reason, I was having issues where I can't use Nanda's database to publish to Azure. I had to use Azure databases. Because for whatever reason, it was like, you're not allowed to connect errors left and right.
How easy is it to update or keep them alive?
It's just the same command to update database with Mike.
You created
It's
a
the same
data
thing.
string so that it's like, Azure connection.
So let me-
And then you just put the Azure credentials in, just like this if it were another database. So
I'm not going to have any of that stuff on here. Do you have your code up here so I could publish yours? Or show how to publish it?
Yeah,
Because I don't have it pulled in. Unless if you have the zip of mine, I could open mine.
well, I think I've made some changes. So Mike's is there. So if you want to,
I could publish mine. Or like, walk through how to publish it.
yeah. So let's see. These three. This is an older one, but
Just pull mine so I can publish mine.
okay. Let's open. Well, especially those who had problems, this is your chance. I'm never going to bring this up again. So you have to ask both Tim and Cody went through this multiple times, right? You were having problems initially. Sometimes it's better to bring to have somebody who had problems to explain it rather than somebody who never had any problems. So you Tim, what are you doing? What is there something that one has to follow here, or does it not matter?
Alright. First thing you're going to want to do, I guess there's two ways you can do it. If you can get Nanda's databases to work, we'll use that as a connection string. If you can't, if for whatever reason it's not connecting, we're going to go through that part first. So when you log in, everyone can get to this, right? Anybody who can't get to this?
Anyone who's not able to get to this?
What's the issue?
That's a whole master's solution. That's Microsoft.
Yeah, don't know how to fix it.
You say that you can extend it if it's expired by just giving a new graduation date?
Yes, but then they have to verify it. Didn't you go through
Yeah,
that?
I connect with it, and then I redid it, and I also did like the graduation thing, and I did my own email connection.
Yeah, I did that. I did
Okay, so you want to get to this screen then? I guess then that, as they said, I don't know if and you even contacted Microsoft?
Yeah. I've been working with them on contacting Rick's place to be
See if the university can just give you another email.
Or you like ask a friend, like, hey.
You do have two email addresses.
Yeah.
Can you use the second one?
Okay, anyone else is having a problem? Is it like one of the others that, can you just raise your hand, the ones who still don't have Azure Public? Everybody is still having?
I can see it.
Okay.
Okay, here.
Okay. If you go ahead.
Okay. So if we're going to publish our databases to Azure, we have to create two separate SQL servers, each to hold one database. Because for whatever reason, the plan we have, you can't create two databases on one server. So the easiest way to do that, on this left-hand side over here, you hit the SQL. We're going to go ahead and click Add. We'll enter a database name. Your subscription is Microsoft Imagine. You can create a resource group. So this could be, just use this for both. So just say, this 452 WordPress or something. Keep it as a blank database. And then this is where we're actually going to create the server. So you're going to say, create new server. It'll come up. We'll just name it something that you'll remember. Yep, something like that. This right here is probably the most important thing you have to remember. Once you put this in, your username and your password, you can look at the username, but the password you can't recover. So if you forget it, you have to do it all over again. I tried for hours.
Welcome to Microsoft UI.
I think on the free pricing plan, you're not allowed to reset it.
You can. I've done it. Jennifer's done it.
Maybe on yours it won't let me on mine. Select a location. Doesn't really matter. It's going to be slow either way. And you select, take passwords, and then all the rest of the stuff, the pricing tier, and then the coalition can all remain the same. And you just hit create, 4 6 errors. Hold on. Oh, you only have one database per region.
You already have one of those. Try West US too.
Excuse me for having a long password. Oh my god. Come on. Work for me. Alright.
At this point, you just created a database inside Azure.
So we created a server with a database.
Server and a database?
Yes.
Okay.
And the database is blank. It's not going to show up here for a little bit because we have to actually go and spool it up. So we're going to do 2 of them. I think it's 1 per region.
Yeah.
So, however many regions there are, that's many databases. Yes. Yes. So every single one of your databases is going to have the same password. It doesn't change. Yeah, that way you don't forget it. Except I didn't have a server on there. Okay. So we got our first one spooled up. Part of the issue you'll run into when you try to connect to it later is right now the firewall rules don't allow anybody into it, period. So when you go from here and you go to home, like suddenly it stops working and it says, access denied. It's probably because it's blocking your IP. So we're going to have to go in to set up firewall rules. It's as easy as saying add client IP and save. And that'll save whatever IP you're currently using.
And if you want to just open it up to the whole world, just do 2 quads and zeros to zeros.
Or that.
Or actually, I guess 2 zeros.
Or you could be more paranoid like me. Alright. While we wait for the other one to spool up, we'll see we can go ahead and start the publishing of the app part. So it's as easy as going in here, hitting that publish button. So right clicking, hitting that publish button.
All those add from just have you been able to get to this point, creating the server and the database? Who else is Nestor? I think who else? You was already there. You have the server set up, and are you there on that screen there?
Yeah, I just put it in the event to
You already gone through that? Okay. So as I said, this is your last chance, and if you don't make it now, then you're stuck. I'm not going to talk about this. So you have to make sure if you have problems, ask questions and try to fix it.
When you create the first one,
You don't have this here? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So go ahead and click that. I'll show it again. Go ahead and click the Microsoft Azure App Service. Go ahead and add. If you're not already signed in, go ahead and add your account. Alright, it should look like this. It should say your subscription is Microsoft Imagine. It should say resource group. Don't use resource type. And then under here, you might have other stuff. If you already have other stuff, don't use that. If there's nothing there, that's good. You don't need anything there. Go ahead and create new on the right side. So this will be the name of your web app. Microsoft Imagine. You can choose your resource group. So you should have that resource group that we created. It should be there. So that should be really the only thing you need to change on this page unless you want to change the web app name. And then you should be able to hit create. And fingers crossed if everything works. It works every time. It's okay. This is where the most issues happen.
This is when I was having fun because it just freeze. And I had to redo everything.
Okay. And hopefully you get to this screen and you didn't have any errors pop up.
Okay, are you at this screen? Well, if you have an environment that's, that Mike is the only one who can resolve this, then you gotta think.
I don't use parallels, so, I use VirtualBox, but it may take a while. It may just take a while because your computer's got limited resources.
Well, you have to, is anyone else following along here? Sir, are you there? You're done? Okay. So is anyone else following along? Or you can just go ahead and record it, it's going to take some time. So from now on, it's, I guess, everyone else just be able to get this published. What about open?
Yeah, I was able to.
Mike, did you only have one connection string? This says you only have one connection string. It says you only have one connection string. Just your default.
Okay. Well, but
Probably because
Yeah,
because he downloaded it and I just put it on there earlier this morning.
So you can change that one.
yeah.
So at this point, you just are ready to publish it then?
We're getting there. We're going to add the database in.
You have to set up the AOB connection string.
Well, we're going to go ahead and connect Azure to the database, and then we'll actually create a connection string. That way we can upload everything to it.
Okay.
So the lovely three-dot button brings up this database destination connection string. Now some people might have two connection strings, if we follow along with what Mike had. The process is the same for connecting both your testing and your default to Azure's databases. So if we go back to the portal here, see if that other one ever showed up. So let's do the main one first. All right. So this is the name, the server name. We're going to copy that. Go back into this lovely screen here. Go ahead and copy that in there. Now this is where that username and password comes into play. That username and password we put in when we set up the server, that's what we have to put in here. Now, it's finicky. Go ahead and do the test connection to make sure it works. Fingers crossed. It's gonna load there. Alright, so after you test connection, if it gives you an error about, a specified database not showing up or something, that's fine. But if it gives you an error like you're not able to access it because of a firewall rule or something, let's go back in and add that firewall rule. If there's any other errors, let me know. So go ahead and click that. There should just be one database name under there. And then after that, just hit OK.
If you publish it once, do you need to continuously publish once you make changes?
I'll show that in a second. So once you publish it once, there'll be a quick and easy dirty button that you just hit it, and it'll upload all the changes you've made recently.
I think I just did that.
Okay. And you can do the exact same thing for the testing database. That should be, you should see it in the second connection string if we've all done what Mike has done with multiple connection strings. You can do that same exact process, but using the other database. And that'll set up for your text connection. After that, we should be able to hit publish, and it should work magically. It'll come up with this wonderful window. Now you might run into issues if you have build errors. It might fail. So, like if you just want to get something up on there, comment out code that's broken or something. whatever. Trying to do it on Wednesday night when everyone's watching Netflix. Alright, so at this point right now, the application is loaded up on Azure. So we can go in and, we can start doing all of this stuff, like there's one. And yes, it's going to be very slow. So we can go ahead and do all this jazz, like searching for stuff. Putting you on the spot now. Okay. No. This is normal. This means it's worked because we're not connecting to Nanda's database, and we haven't set up all of the data in the Azure database and haven't connected to it yet. So this is the error I was having all last semester and was wondering why it's not working. So this is really easy to fix. All we have to do is go back here, and we're going to have to create another connection string. So we're going to just take this entire line 12 here, and copy it, and do it again. Now name this something different, so like I usually do, like Azure default connection. Go ahead and delete everything inside the connection string within the quotes. We don't need that. We're going to go back to the portal, and so going back here, we can see, you look through your database, so publishing for class. On this right-hand side, you're going to see the show database connection strings. Go ahead and click that. It'll pop up with, a whole bunch of different ones. We want the .NET one. Go ahead and select that one. Go back into Visual Studio, copy that over. Trial and error forever.
You can actually download the file too and import it through the
You can,
settings.
but if you do it this way, you can make sure that you know what you're setting up.
Well, it'll populate the string and then you can go look at that string.
I prefer to do it by hand. So you have to change out the ID and the password for the same stuff that we've been using. So that original thing we set up and the same thing we set up when we started publishing. So we get to all see my password now. And just go ahead and save it. Alright, so we go now and we bring up our image to this.
Yeah, change your password to and report it.
Yep, I know. Or we could trust all of it. Alright. Now we're going to update that database just like we were doing earlier on. And we're going to use that whole connection string name. Roll it back first or not. There shouldn't be anything on it. I can know. I can change the card provider now. We just had that last 8. Let's start to find out. We'll find out. And try again. So, for comparison, make sure it goes enough. Need a change. Hear that change? Yeah, you did. Wow.
Yeah, try using the so that might trick out
Maybe one day it is. That is very good time. No, it's still going. No, it's fine. It's probably gonna take forever. Hey, that's all I said.
So if I was to working code, or he didn't have to do any of that, so we just left to don't have to worry about it?
Probably.
Okay.
But now you have, just in case it breaks, now you have this. Also, if Monda ever takes his database down, you won't have access to that data anymore. So this way, it's all self-contained on your own Azure account. That way, if you want to go to an employer in a year, or over the summer, if you've taken the database down, that way you have the tools to then go and say, hey, I still have access to it.
How long does this account last until you graduate? I can extend it.
You can extend it. The cool thing about Azure is it's made for use. So if you were to set all this up, you can actually take these servers down to where you're not actually using them. And it doesn't cost you anything more than a couple of cents a month to keep your account going.
Yep.
And then let's say you're going on a week of interviews, you can pull up your servers, and then that way when you get to your interview, you can go, look, I have this published. And the fact that you knew how to publish it to Azure is going to go a long way in getting you a job anyway. So
Yes.
I would suggest that any job that you're applying for, you add this in and even provide a link to the URL. I think that has anyone other than Bravo, I know we used it, but has anyone used it in other interviews so far or put it on your resume?
I just got working so now.
Is anyone still interviewing for jobs, applying for jobs? Just try doing it.
now keep in mind if you're going to do it and put it on a resume and you want somebody to look at it beforehand, you have to open it up to a large broad spectrum of IP addresses. You don't know what corporate IP address they're going to connect from. So.
Yeah.
Well, but the issue is when I get in, if you give me the URL, I'm able to access the web page.
Yeah, the web page you can access. It's when you're trying to make changes to the database. So you should be able to access the web page fine.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now, I don't know if you're creating and deleting through this, whether it'll have a connection or not, but yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, one of the things I want to make sure is that you're creating tests. The entire, this is actually Mike's older project. I think he updated it, but the project that, the method update, actually Mike has tried to use a different method for updating the GPA, but whatever you use for updating, you need to create an associated test. How many of you have a test with the associated with that whatever we call that. Let me open that up. So now, other than Kevin, is everyone else published to Azure then? If you have, email me. So just it's working now. Okay, thank you, Tim. And yeah, so I think he explained it very well. You can see why professors are redundant, right? Or it's actually they do a better job, I think, the students. But coming back to this, which is why I'm now gradually subverting the process, because 352 is now taught by a former student, so gradually maybe all the courses will be taught by former students or current students, which will... Well, anyways, coming back to this, one of the things that, well, we have another 5 minutes left. How many of you have calculated student GPA functioning fully now? 1, 2, only 2. Mike, yours is working, right? Okay, so 3, 4, okay. Calculate GPA. So yeah, I'm going to go through all these projects. Was it in the, those of you raise your hand, is it in the file locker version that you, okay. Okay, one of the things that we were discussing last class was, and just trying to determine how much time we have, the issue was we needed to get at the students, all of the students' courses that he or she had registered for. And one of the key points to start off was, since we have made it an object method, we can get the ID from the student object itself. The other thing that Preston mentioned was you don't necessarily have to return this unless you're, for testing it makes it easier. Why is it not necessary to return it? Other, Stella, can you tell us? Yeah, right here, this is essentially a property. It's on it's basically for that particular object. So you could, after you calculate, instead of returning, you could just say, what can you say over here? Okay, student GPA equals whatever that GPA is. So this will get the value in, and then you can potentially just get the value for testing as well. So this is an alternate option you have because it is an object method. So again, going back to the big picture, so at this point we have access to all the course registrations for this particular student. The next step, obviously, being once you have, we want to get the, where is it? We want to get to our course, the courses that the student has taken for the course credits. And we were discussing last class, that means you have to navigate from course registration, course offering to course. And if you look at student, and this is something I would at this point have actually liked to have brought in, not only course offering but course as well, the associated. And this is, I don't know if any one of you have explored it a little further. The include allows you to include only one associated clause. It doesn't allow you to chain further. Does anyone know? Stella, have you?
I tried.
Yeah. So it doesn't chain beyond?
I've had to work on things.
What do you mean? You
Do another dot include.
dot include? So ideally it would be that you would just dot include the next one, which is course. But I'm not sure if this is, if this works, then it makes this process much easier. But since so I'll do a check. So I'll put a question mark here. Just check this out if it works. But once you're inside of each course registration, if we are not able to include course, then you're needing to go in and find one course object at a time. And why are we trying to find each course object? In the big picture, it is because we want the course credits, right? So which means, and this is where if you want to avoid null value errors, what do you need to do? You have to have an if statement someplace here. What's that if statement? What are we checking for? We don't want to try to include any grade point that is null, right? So how do we check to see it is not null? What did you do, Brian?
I think it's letter grade equals null.
Okay, letter grade is null, or the equivalent letter grade, and what else should be grade points? So where do we get that from? So either grade points or letter grade. We made grade points nullable here, whereas it's in course registration. So you put if. What's the condition here? If it is equal to null, what do we do? We want to avoid anything that's null, right? So what's the easiest way to avoid? If it's not equal to null, then we are going to do the accumulation. Right? We want to add more course credits. So basically, we need to accumulate course credits. So we need an accumulator, and then we have to find out the quality points. Now, one of the issues that Mike brought up is this. This can be an expensive process if you're dealing with a lot of courses. Though, how many students are we dealing with each time? We are dealing with one student at a time, right? So we are not bringing in all the student data in. We are bringing one student's data in. But what Mike said is, if you can keep track of the quality points, where did you put quality points? Did you make it an attribute property here?
It's an attribute of both, because you have the quality points for the class.
Okay, for all right here. Okay, so you made it here.
Overall quality points for the student.
Okay. So what his argument is, you have to, in a real world scenario with tens of thousands of students, then it might slow down the process. So one of the things, the main thing is, think of if you were to multiply this data by 1 million, what would happen? Would things slow down? So when you're going through your design, do what Mike did. Think of and especially on a project, you should apply it as well. Multiply the sample data by some very large number, like 10 million, and see would that affect how you have designed your logic for a method. Okay. Anyways, by next class, I want to, if you have not already done the GPA, I want you to have it done, and then have not only the GPA logic, but also have a test method that tests it. Okay. So those two I want to see, and if you haven't done it, do it and post it on FileLocker and let me know that you have a new version.
So when we had when we did the, I forget what it's called, but we had this dot student in the code, I had to remove this dot and do a lowercase s for that variable for whatever reason, and then I was able to get data in.
Okay.
When I did this dot, I wasn't getting any data back when I debugged it.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. That's just something.
Could you